It was a warm summer day in London. The streets bustled with life, the air thick with the promise of another routine afternoon. 25 years old, Suzy Lamplugh was just like any other young professional chasing her ambitions. With her bright smile, impeccable fashion, and determined spirit, she was the kind of woman who made an impression. An estate agent with a keen eye for detail, she loved the fast-paced, unpredictable nature of her job. But on that fateful day, July 28, 1986, Lamplugh unknowingly stepped into the shadowy grip of a nightmare. As she closed the office door behind her that afternoon, no one imagined that would be the last time anyone would ever see her again. She was on her way to meet a mysterious client named Mr. Kipper, a name now etched in infamy. This man, whose existence would soon slip into the fog of uncertainty, was about to plunge her life into the abyss. Lamplugh drove away in her white Ford Fiesta, unaware that she was heading straight into the jaws of an unspeakable fate. The appointment was supposed to be routine, just another house viewing at 37 Shorrolds Road. Suzy had done it countless times before. The clock ticked past 12:40 p.m. as she left her Fulham office, heading to what should have been an ordinary task. But this was no ordinary day. Something wicked was lurking in the silence. As the hours passed and Suzy failed to return, concern started to seep in. Her colleagues assumed she had taken the rest of the day off, but when she didn't arrive home that night, the dread became palpable. Suzy, the bright young woman who had everything to live for, had vanished without a trace. The police were contacted, and what began as a missing person case would soon spiral into one of Britain's most spine-chilling mysteries. Suzy's white Ford Fiesta was discovered later that evening, abandoned on Stevenage Road, just a short distance from where she was last seen. Her purse was discovered in her car, but both her personal keys and the keys to 37 Shorrolds Road were missing. The driver's seat was pushed back to a position too far for Suzy to have driven, suggesting someone else had operated the vehicle. The car sat eerily on the side of the road, as if it had been left in haste. The doors were unlocked, her purse still inside. But there was no sign of Suzy. Not a single clue as to what had happened in the hours since she had driven away from her office. It was as though she had simply been erased from existence. 3 witnesses spotted Suzy outside 37 Shorrolds Road between 12:45 and 1 p.m. on that fateful July day. At 12:50 p.m., a passerby saw Suzy standing at the gateway of the property, seemingly waiting for someone. 10 minutes later, a neighbor heard movement from number 37 and saw Suzy leaving with a man, both casting glances back at the house, a moment that would later serve as the basis for an identikit of the mystery man. This man, described as between 25 and 30 years old, with dark hair swept back and a sharp, well-dressed appearance, became the center of the police's attention. Witnesses later saw Suzy entering a car with the man, noting what appeared to be an argument before they drove off. Chillingly, a witness recalled seeing Suzy in a dark-colored BMW, struggling with a man inside the car, frantically honking the horn, yet no one realized at the time that this was the last desperate moment of a woman being pulled into darkness. But who was this man? Was he Mr. Kipper, the shadowy figure scrawled in her work diary? Or was he something much darker? A predator, hiding behind the guise of a potential buyer? The police knew one thing. This was no ordinary disappearance. The investigation took a chilling turn. The hunt for the elusive Mr. Kipper began with a sense of urgency. Who was he? Was this even his real name? Or had he carefully crafted a persona to ensnare Suzy in his web? The police combed through records, searching for anyone who might fit the description given by witnesses. Public appeals were made, pleas for anyone who had seen or heard anything unusual. But Mr. Kipper had vanished just as quickly as Suzy. Suzy's boyfriend, a 27-year-old stockbroker, and her male flatmate were both questioned by police, but had solid alibis supported by corroborating witnesses. Investigators searched Suzy's two-bedroom flat in Putney, but found nothing suspicious. In the press, speculation arose that if Mr. Kipper, the man Suzy was supposed to meet, had the first name Dan, it would create an anagram for kidnapper. Adding to the mystery, Suzy's office manager revealed that a bouquet of red roses had been delivered to the office by an unknown man just days before her disappearance. While police released a photo of Suzy with dark brown hair, she had tinted her hair blonde the Friday before she vanished. The initial investigation, conducted without computers, relied on an old card index system, and over 26,000 cards were used to track leads. Since Suzy was treated as a missing person rather than a crime victim, local known criminals were not considered suspects. 6 months later, a man informed police about a BMW abandoned for months, which was registered to a Belgian man sometimes known as Mr. Kuiper. Detectives believed this clue was significant, but the car's owner had a confirmed alibi and was eliminated as a suspect. The investigation grew cold. With no body, no crime scene, and only a vague description of a man, the police were grasping at straws. Suzy's family was left in torment, her friends helpless. The media latched onto the story, plastering Suzy's face across the nation, but no answers came. It was as if the world had swallowed her whole. A year after Suzy's disappearance, detectives noted that an artist's sketch of Mr. Kipper resembled John Cannan, a convicted rapist and murderer, who had been living in a nearby prison hostel at the time. Cannan had been released from prison just days before Suzy vanished, and his past was littered with violent encounters. Cannan, known for attracting women, had a violent history, including a 1980 incident where he raped and beat his girlfriend and a 1981 attack on a shopkeeper. Around the time of Suzy's disappearance, Cannan had been on day release from prison and worked as a porter in the area. He frequented wine bars in Fulham, some of which Suzy had also visited, and often used roses as part of his romantic advances. Cannan was released from prison on the 25th of July, 1986, 3 days before Suzy disappeared, and was known to frequent places she visited. There was something even more sinister about this man. He was known to use the nickname Kipper. The police quickly focused their attention on him. The pieces seemed to fit together like shards of broken glass, sharp, jagged, and dangerous. And the chilling similarities between Suzy's case and the murder of Shirley Banks, another young woman Cannan had abducted, could not be ignored. But even as the walls closed in, John Cannan denied everything. He laughed off the accusations, his cold, calculating demeanor unshaken, and without physical evidence linking him to Suzy's disappearance, the police couldn't charge him. It was like trying to hold on to smoke. The harder they tried, the more elusive the truth became. The years dragged on, and with them, the hope of ever finding Suzy grew dim. But the police refused to give up. In the late 1990s, they began to explore new leads. Search teams descended upon brickwork sites in Worcestershire, places linked to Cannan's dark past. They dug, sifted through layers of earth, hoping to unearth a grim discovery. Nothing. Not a bone. Not a shred of clothing. Suzy's final resting place remained a cruel mystery. In 1999, an internal report by the Metropolitan Police criticized the original investigation into Suzy's disappearance and failure to thoroughly investigate John Cannan. A new team was assembled in the early 2000s to either implicate or eliminate Cannan as a suspect. They uncovered additional evidence linking him to the case, including his suspicious visits to estate agents in Fulham under the alias Mr. Kipper around the time Suzy vanished. Cannan had a history of rapes targeting homes for sale in the West Midlands during his failing marriage, and his actions mirrored the Suzy case. Witnesses from a 2000 Crime Watch reconstruction also identified Cannan near Suzy's office on the day she disappeared. Despite Cannan denying his involvement, circumstantial evidence mounted, including his ownership of a dark BMW matching witness descriptions of the car in which Suzy was last seen struggling. In December 2000, Cannan was arrested but refused to provide information that would clear him of suspicion, and he was arrested again in 2001 for further questioning, offering no alibi for the critical days around Suzy's disappearance. Investigators believe Suzy made a mysterious phone call the afternoon she disappeared. 3 days prior, the same day John Cannan was released from a nearby open prison, Suzy visited the Prince of Wales pub in Putney, where Cannan was also known to go. Her handbag went missing there, but the landlord found it and contacted Suzy to collect it on the 28th of July, the day she vanished. Hours after her disappearance, a woman calling herself Sarah left a message for Suzy at the pub, followed by a man claiming to be a policeman asking about her diary and checkbook, though police later confirmed he was an imposter. Detectives suspect the calls were made by Cannan, who had previously coerced a victim into making a similar call under duress. Investigators also believe Cannan might have stolen Suzy's belongings from the pub as part of his stalking behavior. In 2007, a criminologist revealed that DNA evidence found in a car previously owned by Cannan linked her to the vehicle. Cannan had access to this red Ford Sierra around the time of her disappearance, though he later denied using it. Despite DNA evidence showing both Suzy and Cannan had been in the car, the Crown Prosecution Service felt it was insufficient to prove they were there at the same time, preventing charges from being brought against him. Then, in 2010, another glimmer of hope. Cannan's mother's house was excavated. Rumors swirled that Suzy's body had been buried there, a macabre secret hidden in plain sight. But once again, the search yielded nothing. By now, the police had exhausted nearly every avenue, but the cold, hollow truth lingered. Suzy was gone, and her killer still walked free. For Suzy's family, the pain was unbearable. Her parents, Paul and Diana Lamplugh, became the voices of resilience in the face of unimaginable grief. They dedicated their lives to ensuring that no other family would suffer the same horror. In Suzy's name, they founded the Suzy Lamplugh Trust, raising awareness about personal safety and fighting for the protection of vulnerable women. But even their tireless efforts couldn't fill the void. In 1994, Suzy was officially declared dead, presumed murdered. No grave to visit, no closure, just an endless abyss of unanswered questions. Paul and Diana passed away without ever knowing what had happened to their beloved daughter. The weight of the unknown followed them to their graves. As we stand here today, more than 3 decades later, the disappearance of Suzy remains one of Britain's most chilling mysteries. Did John Cannan truly take her life, or is there another dark figure lurking in the shadows, hiding just out of reach? Some still cling to the hope that one day the truth will come to light, that Suzy's killer will finally be unmasked. But until that day, her story lingers like a spectre, haunting the streets of Fulham, whispering through the cracks of history. Suzy Lamplug's name will forever be entwined with questions that may never be answered. The disappearance of Suzy remains an open wound, a stark reminder that sometimes the world can turn from familiar to terrifying in the blink of an eye. Her case stands as a haunting testament to how even the brightest lives can be swallowed by darkness. And somewhere out there, the man who knows what happened still walks among us. If you want to hear more gripping tales like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload. If you'd like us to cover impactful crime stories that could shed light on important cases and help make a difference, please feel free to email us or leave a comment below. Like to support the channel further and help us create even more in-depth content? Consider donating through the link in the description.